Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. This is Sanover Sultan, and today I'm here to discuss a very different topic as compared to my other videos. I know last time I discussed philosophy of Socrates, but this time I decided to work and share with you Islamic philosophy. And the topic that I have chosen is the Islamic philosophical debate between Wahdatul Wajood and Wahdatul Shahud. Now, to get right to the point, firstly, I would like to give a disclaimer that this philosophy and this debate has nothing to do with the Islamic law or Sharia as we call it, or jurisprudence. And this is merely a philosophical debate that Muslim philosophers had among themselves. So you have to understand that this discussion has nothing to do with Islamic law. So now that we have gotten that out of the way, let's get straight to the point of as to what is Wahdatul Wajood first. Now, Wahdat means unity. And this was explained by Ibn Arabi in several of his writings. What does he say is that if Wahdat means unity, then Wahdatul Wajood means unity of existence. What Ibn Arabi says is that the only existence that exists in the universe is of God himself, and everything else is irrelevant. That means you and I, we do not exist in the reality of Ibn Arabi. He says that because the only existence is God, everything else is merely an idea, a shadow, or a reflection. What does this mean is, for example, there is a human being walking, or an animal, if you see an animal under the sun, and you see a shadow. Now that shadow itself has no reality. The reality is of the being behind the shadow, of whom the shadow you see, that being is the reality. So according to Ibn Arabi and Wahdatul Wajood, we are shadows, and the only reality is of God. When you look into the mirror, you see your reflection. Now that reflection is not the reality. That is only a reflection. The reality is the being looking at the reflection. Same is the case is when you look into the water and you will see a reflection of yourself. But you know that that reflection is not the reality, and the being behind the reflection or in front of the reflection is the reality. So Arabi says that we are merely shadows and reflections, and we do not exist. And the only existence in this world is of God. So God is everywhere. God is omnipotent. God is in this world. He's in this universe. He's in this galaxy. He is the only existence that exists. Everything else, including us, including life on this planet, everything else is irrelevant and has no reality. So, dear audience, this philosophical school of thought was heavily criticized by Muslim scholars from another school of thought. And it was heavily criticized, and some critics even labeled it to pantheism. And they equated it to pantheism, and what they even called it as the word which is called shirk in Islam. That if you say God is everywhere, then that means you can say the stone is God, the sun is God, this being is God, anything is God. Because if nothing else exists and only God exists in this world, then that means anything can be God. That is the criticism on Wahdatul Wajood, that its critics have said that if you believe that, then that is what it equates to. Now Wahdatul Wajood, then they gave a counter argument to this criticism, and they said that they didn't mean that you can say anything is God. What they meant is that everything is not God, but the only thing that exists is God. Okay, I'll repeat the counter argument. Wahdatul Wajood's counter argument is to the claims of pantheism, the criticism on it, that they promote pantheism or equates it to pantheism, is that they said that everything is not God, but the only thing that exists is God. Now that was Wahdatul Wajood. Now we will get to Wahdatul Shahud. Now Wahdat again means unity. Now Wahdatul Wajood was proposed by Ahmad Sirhindi. And he rejected Wahdatul Wajood and he heavily criticized it and came up with his own school of thought, which is Wahdatul Shahud. How he explains it? He says that there are stages of spiritualism, and Wahdatul Wajood is a stage of spiritualism in which the person feels like, or the person thinks, that God is the only reality. However, that is only a thought. That is only something that he is witnessing because he is in a state of spirituality. That actually is not the reality itself, according to Wahdatul Shahud. And he says that there is actually a reality to everything on this planet. Okay, Ahmad Sirhindi or Wahdatul Shahud proponents say that you and I also exist. We also have a reality. We have accountability of our deeds. We are responsible for our actions, and our reality is actually bestowed upon by God, God himself. But we do have a reality, and God has a reality. And when you reach a higher stage of spiritualism, which is above Wahdatul Wajood, you will reach to a higher level of spiritualism, which will be Wahdatul Shahud, in which you will realize that God is also a bigger reality, and so is the reality around you, about you as well. And that God has given a concrete reality to us as well. So the shadow in Wahdatul Wajood, because Wahdatul Wajood called us as shadows, is not a shadow in Wahdatul Shahud. That shadow is a reality in Wahdatul Shahud. And lastly, again, to reiterate the point, Wahdatul Shahud proponents say that Wahdatul Wajood is merely a point or stage of spiritualism. And an even higher stage of spiritualism is Wahdatul Shahud, when you realize that God is a bigger reality, but so is the reality of us and around us that God himself has bestowed. So to put it in a very simplistic form, those were the two philosophical debates, which again I would reiterate has nothing to do with Sharia. These are merely philosophical debates that Muslim academics had among themselves. So you can choose either side of the philosophy and read up on it. And I hope I've added to your information today. So thank you very much, dear audience. I shall see you all next week, and I'll come up with more topics. If you like my videos, if you like what I have to say, then do watch them and subscribe to my channel, Sanoba's World. And I shall see you all next week. Bye-bye.